Hey everybody, and welcome to my live stream. All right. I'm so happy you decided to join me, whether you are watching live right now or you are just tuning in later. Thank you for being here. I know this is a very weird time for all of us. We're going to talk about it a little bit, but we're mostly going to focus on music and just enjoying ourselves. It's definitely an unprecedented time for a lot of us. Things are really up in the air with so many parts of our life that we're used to having familiar. So sometimes music is the best thing in these situations to just sort of give us some sounds for the words that we don't have and help us process everything that's going on. So I know it's been a while since I've done an actual playing live stream. I've done some practice sessions, but I haven't been playing quite as much on the channel like I used to a few years ago. But so many people have been asking me to come back and play, and I thought there was really no better time than now to bust out my cello and play some music for you guys. So I'm really excited to get into it. I'm excited to talk to you guys too and see how you're doing. No pressure at all, but if you want to say hi in the chat, talk about how you're surviving this time and how it's going for you. You know, this should be a community thing. We should all be kind of supporting each other, enjoying the music, and just getting through these times. So I'm going to sit up here for just another moment, and then I'm going to go back with the cello. I'm going to be monitoring the chat on another computer over there. So hopefully this will all go smoothly. You know, I live in an apartment building because I live in Los Angeles, and a lot of my neighbors are home, so I'm hoping there's not going to be a lot of commotion, or I'm not going to be causing a lot of commotion for other people by doing this. But we're going to roll with it. Like I've said before, this is an informal stream. It's not like a fancy concert. We're just here in my little living room office space, playing some cello music and hanging out. So let's see if I can see the chat over here. Yeah, New York. I'm from New York, and my dad and my little siblings and my stepmom all still live in Manhattan, so I've been hearing how crazy it's been for New York. I mean, now LA is basically taking all the same precautions, but we definitely don't have as many cases, or at least as many reported cases right now. So it feels pretty safe around here, but we're all doing our best to stay home and only go out when we need to. So luckily, I do a lot at home anyway, and I have to say, it's always a crisis that brings me back to my cello. I mean, like a power outage, which we don't get power outages really here in Los Angeles, but when I lived on the East Coast, a big storm or something like that would happen. It was like, power's out to the cello. Like having a wooden box that you can play under any circumstances is very handy, and it's gotten me through some of the hardest times of my life. So I found myself playing cello right away when this whole thing started, and that's where I got the idea, hey, why don't I just do a live stream? So let's see. All right, I am gonna go back into my spot. So as you can see, we've got the birds joining us today. I don't know, sometimes they're gonna be close up, sometimes they're gonna be far away. I hope no one finds it scary that this large bird is next to me, but now that I do have a TV in this room, I didn't have a TV for many years because I really didn't use it, and I liked having a blank wall to film YouTube videos in front of. Since I'm not filming as many videos as I used to, I ended up getting a TV, and I have to say, I use it more for bird videos than for anything else. I started playing these videos for my cat, but I found having them on that I liked them myself, so we're having some birds join us for this live stream. Though I do have to say, if the connection gets weird or slow, I may turn it off. It is using some of the bandwidth to run those videos straight from YouTube, and I know with so many people home, like a lot of the Wi-Fi stuff is just like not working the same. Servers are overloaded and stuff, so hopefully everything will go fine today, but if it doesn't, we'll make some adjustments. Oh, hello from England. It's late there, so I appreciate you tuning in late. Toilet paper cello challenge. I have not seen that, so I will check that out. I can't even imagine what that would be, like wrapping toilet paper around your cello. Seems wasteful when we're in a toilet paper shortage. Okay, so I am going to move back to my seat. Hopefully we're going to be able to preserve the audio fine. I'm going to move the microphone a little further. You guys know I do a pretty basic setup for these streams, nothing too fancy, so hopefully you can all still hear me okay. It's probably a little more quiet, but the cello is going to be pretty loud once I start playing. All right. Hey Oliver, yeah, hopefully Daisy will make a cameo, though I have to say, my cello playing really chills her out, so if Daisy comes around, she's just going to be laying down on the floor enjoying the vibes. Oh, I didn't even realize that was you, Oliver, that said thing about New York. Okay, let's see. Wow, we got a lot of people from all over. I'm so glad you guys tuned in. You know, we got to come together at times like this. So here we are. So like it says at the top of the stream, this is just kind of like the getting into it. Right now, I'm going to play like some scales and some warm-ups because I know like a lot of people who watch this who are string players and who are musicians kind of like to see my process with that. So I always do a little bit of warm-ups before I get into it. But at around 3:30 my time, so in like another 20 minutes, we'll get going with the actual program. And by the way, the program is in the description of the video if I stick to it. So you can get all the details on the pieces and the composers in the description. Okay. All right, so what else? So if you are new to my channel or you haven't tuned into one of my live streams before, I am a Baroque cellist, so I am playing on a replica of an 18th century cello. So it is a little bit different than a modern cello, which I have sitting over here. The biggest difference is the gut strings, which you will hear the sound of and which will hopefully not squawk too much today. My strings are a little old because I'm not playing as much as I used to, so hopefully they cooperate. But so I'm playing on gut strings. I do not have an end pin. You can't really see with the camera angle here, but I am just cradling the instrument with my legs because there is no end pin on a Baroque cello. And then my bow is a lot pointier than a modern bow. It has a lighter tip and a different shaped curve to the bow, which makes for different articulations. So basically what I'm playing on is a simulation of the string instruments the way they existed in the 18th century rather than how they developed and exist now in the 21st century. So all the music I'm playing is going to be from the 17th and 18th centuries, so playing on this instrument is a lot closer to what the music actually sounded like during the composer's time period, rather than playing on steel strings with a heavy modern bow and a long end pin. That creates a different kind of sound that didn't exist actually during the time that these pieces were written. So I am playing more in what we call a historically informed fashion on my Baroque cello today. And I say I always do Q&A on my streams. This is the chatting portion, this first part, so I'm happy to do some questions now. I'm going to take little breaks in between some of the pieces. I don't have a ton of music to play, so I will take some breaks and answer a couple questions then. And I'll do some questions at the end of the entire program also. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. If I miss it, feel free to ask again later. I want to be just giving back to you guys as much as possible. I know we're all like need some distractions that are positive right now, so that's what I'm here for. And yeah, if it's late for you, which I know it is for a lot of people, this stream will be archived. You can always come watch it on my YouTube channel at a later date. So we talked a little bit about my Baroque cello, so that's what's going on here. One question we already got is how do you get motivated to practice? And at least for me, I'm very specific task oriented, so it was easier for me to motivate myself to practice when I had very specific goals, like I was in music school and I had recitals and juries and lessons to be prepared for. So when I finished my schooling, both my undergrad and then my master's, I sort of created those types of things for myself so that I was still task oriented. So a lot of you know I have solo unaccompanied albums that I put out in 2013 and 2014. Those were sort of my projects to keep me on task and practicing. I think the best thing is kind of have a goal for yourself, like a minimum, like I'm going to do at least an hour today, and try to schedule out the best time of day where you feel you'll be the most productive and the least distracted, and just schedule it in. A lot of times we have to kind of put a lot of structure around us to feel the motivation to just do it. It's kind of like going to the gym. Like the hardest part is like getting there, but then once you're there, you know, you're ready to go. It's kind of the same with the instrument. Like the hardest part is saying I'm going to go practice, but if you make yourself sit down, tune your instrument, get your music out, you're going to find, okay, I can do this. And then once you get going, it's not so bad. So that's just what works for me. I'm just a very like organized, structured person, so planning really does help me stick to what I'm trying to do. So no gamba in this household. I wish I had a viola da gamba. It is one of my favorite instruments, and I can play it a little bit, but I do not have one. I am playing on my Baroque cello today, as I already mentioned, and this is a modern cello back here. And then we have a nylon string acoustic guitar and my Fender Stratocaster over here. We got as many instruments in the shot as I could fit because it brings the good energy. Any good mics for cello that aren't too expensive? So people ask me about microphones a lot, and I know there's so many out there, and you can find a good option at almost any price point. I've even seen people with little USB microphones that are like $20, and they're really not too bad. The thing that I use is a multi-purpose type device, and I'll show it to you, though it's recording right now, so it's going to be, you're going to hear me pick it up. But this thing, which is the Zoom H4n, sorry you guys, I don't want to be too loud on you, which is in my Amazon shop. I always have my Amazon shop linked in the description of the video, so you can see the exact product. What's cool about this thing that I'm using, it's a stereo microphone, so it has two little microphones, and that means it picks up sound like from the whole room. So it's really great if you want to like record concerts or rehearsals and you want to record like a lot of people or a couple people. It's nice to have a stereo microphone. So that's what this Zoom is, and then it's also what's called an audio interface, fancy term to mean that it can record music right onto the device, whereas if you buy just a freestanding microphone, you have to plug that microphone into something like a computer that will then save that audio that you're recording. The Zoom is very handy because it will just record the audio right into an SD card on the device, which you can then move to your computer or whatever. So it's great for concerts to just bring and set up on a tripod, and it does work as a USB microphone, which is how I'm using it now. I plug it into my computer, and it's operating solely as a microphone. And it sounds fantastic. It's the one device that I use to record my solo cello albums and my duo album, Old Friends, were all recorded on this Zoom. So it goes for about $200, $250. It's not cheap. But if you're ready to invest in a recording device that you can use in a lot of different situations, I really do recommend it. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of like more inexpensive things to offer, but if you have a new iPhone or something, honestly, the microphones are pretty good in phones these days, especially if you have a newer model, so it's not the worst option to also just record stuff on your phone in voice memos or something. Okay, so now I'm going to get into a little bit of my warm-ups that I always do before we get into the actual program. So you guys can feel free to let me know if anything with the audio sounds weird while I'm doing these warm-ups, so that way I can make adjustments for the actual concert portion. Oh, and I see Oliver is giving some advice. Oliver's a good friend of mine. There's some videos of him on my channel. Amazing Baroque cellist and super knowledgeable with tech stuff, so I'm not even reading your long blurb, Oliver, but I trust that it's good, reliable information. All right, let's play some scales. Although, Randy, I just see your question about playing lower Baroque, like 392 or 400. I mean, I play at 415 is the standard Baroque pitch, which is, for those who don't know, it's basically the A becomes a G sharp, so it's a half step down. That's the standard tuning I use. If I were doing like a French orchestral program or something, I might do 392. Personally, I don't, for my own purposes, retune to anything but 415. Was that a cat or a dog? I missed it. Oh, there's a human. We didn't ask for humans in these videos. Birds only. All right, let's play some scales. So I'm just going to warm up using what's called a long short stroke that comes from my old teacher, Phoebe Karai. It's a really great stroke for kind of waking up the fingers. If you're not familiar with Baroque playing, because we don't use vibrato as much with the left hand, a lot of the expressive stuff comes from the right hand. So we need to have really flexible fingers in order to make those expressive nuances. So this is a good bow stroke for kind of warming up the fingers, so that's why I'm going to do it. Thank you guys already. I'm glad you're already excited. We haven't even gotten into the concert yet, and we've got some enthusiasm. Thank you guys already. I'm so happy about that. So yeah, that was the long, short stroke. I am going to move. I often do my scales starting in C major, and then I do circle of fifths up until 3 sharps, and then I switch to flats up until 3 flats. I'm not going to go through all my scales today. I don't really have time, but I'm going to do a couple for some of the keys I'm going to play in. So I'm going to do a G major now. And I'll do a short stroke for this G major. Alright, I'm going to move to D major. I'm going to do 16th notes. Alright, I'm going to move to F major. I'm going to do slurs. Some chords, mostly because my strings haven't been speaking super well today, so I want to play some chords and kind of feel out the response of my strings today. Spoilers though, I won't play the repertoire that's coming later. Okay. Alright, let's do some more exercises. Why don't I do... So we got 5 minutes before we go into the music, trying to decide if we should talk a little bit about the program. I think I will before we get into the music. So I've been here on YouTube for a long time, over 10 years. I've lost count at this point. I've been really serious about the channel since I want to say like about 2015, 2016 is when I really devoted myself to this YouTube channel and created most of the content that's on here now. And since that time, for the last, 5 or so years, I've done a lot of projects, and I did my albums even before I was big on YouTube, which are called Bass Sounds and Bass Sounds Evolved, which are on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. And there's also Bandcamp links in the description. If you like any of the music that you hear today in the program, a lot of it I have recorded in albums in the past. And a lot of it is pretty obscure music or music that isn't recorded very often. I mean, that doesn't apply to the Bach Cello Suites, which I'll be starting with. But for the other pieces, they are pretty rare, and there's not a lot of recordings out there. So if you do like them, I suggest checking out my recordings. And I'm doing kind of a mixed bag of 17th and 18th century music for today. We are going to start off, and this program, like I said, the program is all in the description of the video if you want details on the full names of the composers and the pieces. We're going to start off with the famous to Baroque cellists, I don't know how famous we can really call it, the famous Gabrielli First Ricercar, which is a 17th century piece. People who are familiar with me know 17th century music is really my favorite. It's really the earliest we have of cello music, and some of the 17th century music that I play is not even technically for cello. It's for a bass instrument, which could be a cello, could be a viola da gamba, could be a bass da violon. There's a lot of options of what instruments were playing what in the 17th century, whereas in the 18th century, they got a little bit more specific about that. But so we're going to have a mix today. We'll start with a 17th century piece by Gabrielli. A Ricercar is basically like an improvisatory piece similar to a prelude, so it's a nice thing to start with. After the Gabrielli, we're going to move into Bach, and of course I have to play Bach, not because he's the most popular and everyone wants to hear him, but I really, in thinking about kind of the times that we're in and everything that we're going through, Bach's music is something that I think musicians and classical music fans alike agree that there are so many layers to Bach. It basically never ends. As you grow and mature as a person, so does your appreciation for what Bach has written. And I think at a time like this that's so heavy and complicated and confusing, music like Bach's is really something that I think can touch a lot of us at a time like this. So I'll be playing 3 movements from the first Bach Cello Suite and 1 movement from the second Bach Cello Suite. And then we are going to get into some different stuff. We've got some etudes by Dotzauer, which are a little bit more classical. They're on the later side of music that I play. Then we will have some more 17th century pieces by degli Antoni, similar vein to the Gabrielli that we're going to be starting the concert with. Then we've got a Capriccio by Dalla. That's music that was written around the same era as the Bach Cello Suites, but definitely a different feel, as Bach sort of has his own stamp that many other composers can't touch. But the Dalla music is really nice, sweet music. Much more melodic than Bach, but not quite as heavy. And then we'll be ending with some 17th century pieces by Vitali, that are kind of more fun and lighthearted, so we'll try to end on an upbeat note, even though we are going to go into the depths a little bit in this program for whatever emotions we need to feel and release during this time. I'm hoping we're going to cover them all in this selection of music. So hi everybody, if you're just joining, we're going to get started with the program soon, though I am going to be taking breaks and checking the chat and talking to you guys in between stuff. I am playing on my Baroque cello. It is a copy of an 18th century instrument. It's not actually from the 18th century, but it is replicated to be like an 18th century cello, so it does not have an end pin. I'm playing on gut strings. You can see my fingerboard is shorter, my bow is lighter, so we're going to get a different sound than the regular modern cello for all of this. All right, so I'm going to come over there and take that little banner off the top that says welcome and warm-ups, because we are moving into the real program. And I appreciate you all bearing with me. Like I said, I can't control if there's sound outside that is disruptive. I have not done a performance stream in a long time, so trying to take it a little easy with the programming today. Not going to do anything too crazy or flashy because I'm really haven't been playing as much, but I'm so excited to be here today and to be playing today. So and as I said, don't be shy. Feel free to talk in the chat throughout the performance, whatever you want to do. And so as I've said, and as you can see very clearly at the bottom here, I am, like many musicians were, someone who's affected by all of us having to stay home. A lot of my work is teaching private lessons and things like that, which, yes, some of them I'm moving over to virtual. Some people don't want to do that. It's just a hard time for everybody right now. So if you are someone who is not particularly affected financially by this crisis and you're feeling generous and you would like to donate something or give me a tip for this stream, it is very much appreciated. But of course, There is no obligation at all. I'm here to do this for free for anybody who wants to listen, but if you want to contribute, it's super appreciated. And I'm thinking about, we're going to see how today goes. I may continue to do these streams maybe once a week. If it seems like we're all going to be stuck inside for a while longer, it might be a nice thing to do regularly. So we're going to see about that. All right, hello everybody who's just joining. So we're just about to get into the program, but make yourself at home, talk in the chat. I'm going to be taking breaks talking to you guys. The program is in the description of the video, so you can check out the pieces and the info there. We're going to start with some Gabrielli. Now we'll move on to Bach. You can see the movements I'm playing in the description. And yes, I will be playing the D minor Sarabande. All right, we still have one more Bach movement, but it's from a different suite, so I'm just going to take a little mini break so I can check in with you guys. So if you just tuned in recently and you don't know, I am playing on a Baroque cello, or a model of an 18th century cello, so it has a different bow, gut strings, shorter fingerboard, a bunch of other stuff. If you're interested in learning more about this cello and what the cello was really like in the 18th century, there's lots of videos on my channel. Check out the instructional videos playlist. There's so much info to dive into if you want to learn more about it. That's interesting that there's bass recorder arrangements, but you know, the Bach Cello Suites have been arranged for every instrument because it's such great music, so why not? Okay, so we've got one more Bach movement, and then we'll move into some of the other repertoire. I'm taking my socks off because I worked up a sweat on those first couple movements. That's how you know you're having a good time. Okay, so last Bach movement for today is going to be the Sarabande from the second suite, and again, the whole program I'm playing is in the description of the video.
And there we have our Bach selections. Okay, so I'm going to take a little mini breather, talk to you guys, give myself a little rest, drink some water, and then we'll get on with the rest of the program. So someone asks, how do you approach ornamentation in Bach? It's definitely complicated because Bach wrote out a lot of what is written out in the cello suites is written out ornamentation. And I think it's important to study and recognize that because it allows you to play certain phrases more like ornaments and rather than like, this is exactly the melody. But once you kind of understand what's ornaments and what's not, that can affect your phrasing as well. Basically, I ornament fairly liberally in Bach, mostly not because I think it's historically the most accurate necessarily, but mostly because every cellist records or plays the Bach Cello Suites and we've all just heard them so many times. I think it's really important to kind of put your own spin on Bach. So I take a lot of liberties, mostly just because we've all heard them so many times and we all should kind of put our stamp on it, but it should come from an informed place. A great place to start with ornamentation is just playing around with trills and cadences. There are so many options of what you can do for a trill, and the speed of the trill is a big part of what makes it interesting and expressive. So just knowing that you can play with just the speed of your trill alone, or how long you sit on the trill note before you change into a trill, things like that can be done really tastefully and beautifully, and they don't seem like a huge ornament, but it really adds a lot of flavor. So I definitely like diving into the trills in a lot of places. You may have noticed in the first suite, Sarabande, at the end of one of the phrases going into a repeat, I do a scale lead-in into the repeat, something that like a continuo player would do if they were playing harpsichord. They would cadence on the final note, and then moving into the repeat, they would just play a little scale to bring us back into whatever the key is, or whatever the chord is of the repeat. So little things like that you can play around with, but it's the kind of thing that might upset some people, so you don't want to go too hard. I think sticking with just trills and how you approach your phrasing is what will make it the most interesting. Lots of people from the UK. I'm so excited about that. I really appreciate that Classic FM is so supportive of me and what I do because it helps me really go beyond the national boundaries of just America and reach out further. So I really love that. Yeah, and I appreciate all you guys in the UK who are up so late for this too. If you can't make it to the end, you can always catch the rest of the stream. Later, it'll be up on my YouTube. So, let's see. Just making sure I didn't miss anything, and then we'll keep going with the program. Okay, so next up, we have the Dotzauer etudes. So these are actually the latest pieces that I'm playing on the program today. They're more like classical. If you're a cellist, you probably know the Dotzauer etudes. They are truly etudes, which are, studies, technical pieces.
But I have found that it's actually really fun to take etudes and try to play them more musically, like they're a piece of music, because a lot of these earlier pieces, especially the 17th century ones that I'm playing, were likely written as etudes and exercises, but because it's been so long, we perform them as music, but there's no reason we can't do that with later etudes from the classical period. So that's kind of what I'm doing with Dotzauer, is taking the etude, playing it on this more historical instrument. If I wanted to be really specific, I would of course still be using gut strings for Dotzauer's time, though he was likely working with what's called a transitional or an early classical bow. So something in between this Baroque bow and my modern bow is probably the bow that Dotzauer was using. I'm going to use my Baroque bow because that's just what I'm using for today, and play them kind of stylistically. They're kind of cute, charming little etudes, a nice like breather after the heaviness of Bach, and then we'll get into the rest of the program. I love the pieces by Ortiz. It makes me sad that I don't play gamba more or have a gamba, because that's really best. And you kind of need a keyboard player or some kind of chordal continuo player to play with you for those Ricercars by Ortiz, but I love them. And some of the music I'm playing later, like towards the end, Vitali, early 17th century stuff, similar to Ortiz, a little more cello friendly. But yeah, the early repertoire really is my favorite. Okay, so where is Dotzauer? Let's get Bach out of here. So thank you again if you're just tuning in. Thank you for being here. As I've said already, I am accepting donations or tips if you want to give them. Absolutely no pressure. But, you know, I, like many musicians, was hit by this having to stay home and canceling all work type things. So that's part of why I'm raising money for this fundraiser, but it's of course free for everybody to enjoy, regardless of donation. So it's just if you feel so inclined, you can check out the donation page, which I'm probably going to keep using because I'm thinking I'm going to do these streams potentially once a week. Or if you don't want to deal with fees and third-party websites, my Venmo's right there. Okay. Yeah, I would love to have a gamba. I would love someone to lend me a gamba. I can't play like really advanced solo repertoire, but I can play continuo on gamba pretty well, or I could years ago. So that would be a lot of fun. All right, so Dotzauer, we are starting with etude number 5. And if you're just watching and you want to do something supportive but you're not able to donate, just doing a thumbs up on the video helps YouTube know that people like it and shows it to more people, so you can just hit the thumbs up on the video too. All right. Oh boy. 1 second, guys. It was only a matter of time before neighbor noise happened. All right, we are back. Commotion has begun. I'm doing the best I can, guys. Okay. Dotzauer number 5. Here we go. one funny note in there. Okay. So those were the Dotzauer etudes. If you're just joining, hello and welcome. If you're new to my channel, I am a Baroque cellist, so I am playing on a historical copy of an 18th century cello with gut strings and a Baroque bow. I'm doing some unaccompanied Baroque and classical cello music today just to help us all chill out and have something nice and positive in our lives for this hour or so. So thank you for joining. I am accepting donations if you feel so inclined and you would like to support a musician who is, of course, affected by all the changes going on in the world right now, but absolutely no pressure. I hope you just continue enjoying, even if you cannot donate. Thank you guys for all your kind words. Let me just take a look here before we continue on. Yep, I can absolutely, this bow is African Blackwood. It's made by Christopher English. I believe he's still making bows. I sure hope so. I really love this bow. It's a professional model bow. It's not like a starter Baroque bow. It's definitely like professional level, but Chris English is the maker. Okay, so next up, going back into the 17th century, with these Ricercars by degli Antoni, pretty obscure music. And some people even argue, like a Ricercar is generally, oftentimes it's an unaccompanied piece, but it doesn't have to be. And it's sort of improvisatory in nature. But some people speculate that these particular pieces were possibly continuo parts for a high instrument, and the high instrument part was lost. We don't know if that's true or if it's a standalone piece. I, of course, play them as standalone pieces. I think they stand on their own. But it's an interesting thought that perhaps it was meant to have a violin part with it. Because the 17th century music is, melodically certainly very different from the 18th century. Okay. All right, so again, the program, I know I'm repeating myself so much. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I just know people are tuning in and out, and I just want all the information to be out there, but the program is in the description of the video. Could use a little stretch. As I've said, I'm a little out of practice, or I have not been playing as much as I used to in the earlier days of this channel. I have some other musical endeavors that are not fully cello related that I spend a lot of my time doing now, but I of course keep this channel afloat always. I love featuring other people who play Baroque and classical music on my channel, so you've probably seen some of those videos if you're a subscriber. And if you happen to play Baroque or classical music and you would like to be featured on my channel, you can go to my website, emilyplayscello.com/collaborators, and there's a form to fill out there to apply. Because I love to share my audience. I have such a great audience of classical music loving people, and I love to expose them to other young musicians doing this. So without further ado, let's get into the degli Antoni. Okay. El Torco, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you guys for tuning in and being here. That was a Ricercar by Degli Antoni that I just played, a 17th century piece. And yes, I am accepting donations. Thank you so much if you feel so inclined. If you can't donate, you can support me just by hitting the thumbs up on the video, and subscribing to my channel is also supporting me, or sharing the stream with your friends. Let me check in with the chat before we get into the final pieces of the program. What are some of the defining characteristics of Baroque music? So that's a big topic. What I will say is the Baroque period is really when diatonic harmony became really put into place, which was largely in part by Bach himself. Really the way we come to understand, if you do any kind of classical theory study, it really stems from the rules that originated in the Baroque period, involving things like counterpoint and voice leading and stuff like that. So the harmonic foundation for music really started to get set in the Baroque period, and of course later, especially 19th century Romantic period, they started really expanding on the harmonic language that was available to them. But the Baroque period really set up the basic foundation as we know it. Some things we hear a lot in Baroque music are what's called polyphonic music, so multiple running lines at the same time. We hear that a lot in Bach keyboard works, also orchestral works. So polyphonic music is sort of considered one of the noticeable things in Baroque music. I would also say, instrumentation is a big part of it too. There were not large symphony orchestras at this time. Pretty much everything was chamber music in one way or another. And of course, if you're listening to historical recordings, you'll hear things like a harpsichord, a lute, a viola da gamba, more historical woodwinds. So that means just completely different sounding wooden flutes instead of metal. So the instruments are also a big thing that we hear differently, at least when we're listening to historical recordings of Baroque music. But that's a good question. I should think on that more and have a better, concise answer of how to really describe Baroque music. Usually I just name off composers: Bach, Vivaldi, Handel, the ones that people know, and that gets some sort of aesthetic in people's ears. But yeah, I'm going to think on that one, have like a good, concise answer for that question. Sorry to hear about your tendonitis in your elbow. And yeah, I had a lot of shoulder and neck problems in high school when I was getting ready for my college auditions. It's unfortunate that playing an instrument on any kind of serious level is really like being an athlete in terms of what it does to your body and how much you have to train your body and the health risks involved in your body. You know, it's when I was going through what I was going through, I was young because I was in high school, so there weren't a lot of people dealing with it. But by the time I was in music school, lots of people had tendonitis and shoulder problems, neck problems, back problems, especially string players. It's a very unfortunate reality of having to spend so many hours drilling away on an instrument. Is Baroque bowing more floating over the string? I wouldn't say it is as a general rule, but what I mentioned earlier in the stream is that because we're not using vibrato so much in the left hand, all of our expressive tools are really here in the right hand. So anyone who plays on a Baroque instrument is likely to just have way more tone colors and sound qualities that they get because all the musicality pretty much is coming from the right hand. So I will do more floaty strokes and stuff like that to change the color and the sound and the effect, just because I think it adds a musical layer. And sometimes modern playing can get a little strict of every sound needs to be full and resonant and vibrato and all this stuff, and it gets a little bit like overly streamlined to the point that it's no longer expressive. I don't think that's good playing, but some modern teachers do teach that way and expect their students to play that way. But I am someone who wants variety and expressiveness, and I'm not afraid to make a more sort of ugly, in-your-face sound. I had a teacher who really encouraged that, and it really resonated with me. Not everything has to be this beautiful, polished beam of light. Like, music is music. It's expressive, and sometimes we're going to make different kinds of sounds to properly express that. Okay. So, what do we have left? So I'm kind of jumping around in this program between 17th and 18th century music. Sometimes when I program this stuff myself, I will put it more in order, but I kind of wanted to jump around for variety's sake. So we are going to hop back to the 18th century after that 17th century that I just played. Sorry, I got a lot of shoulder cracks going on. So we are going to play one of the Capricci by Dalla. This is Joseph Marie Clement Dalla, whereas his father is a little bit more well-known. This Dalla basically was a cellist and wrote some of these cello pieces and not a ton else. But these are really nice. They're for solo unaccompanied cello, and they're written roughly around the time of the Bach Cello Suites, but they're very different. They have a more clear-cut melody, and they're not as harmonically dense. So they're really nice little pieces. I'm going to be playing the first one in C minor, which uses the Passacaglia descending bass line, if you're familiar with ground bass patterns from the Baroque. If you're not, you can check out my instructional videos playlist. I have a whole video on ground bass patterns. But basically what you're going to hear is that the implied bass line throughout the piece is repeating the same thing. And so that's going to be the same case for the following pieces I play. So it's kind of nice to clue into that a little bit and listen for that. And I will say that Daisy, my cat, has arrived. She is sitting in her box that I have for her, like a little muffin. She looks really happy right now. I'm sorry that she's not on camera, but just know that Daisy is here. All right, one more stretch. Okay, trying to keep my hair off the fingerboard. Okay. Glad you guys are enjoying it. Thank you again for the kind words. We got 2 pieces left. And I did not know that Ortiz wrote for unaccompanied instrument, or maybe I did and I just haven't seen them, but I will definitely have to check that out. All right, so that was Dalla, and for our last selections today, we have some pieces by Vitali, 17th century Italian. I love this music. It's like my guilty pleasure music, so I'm super excited to play it. I think I will start with the C major one, and then we'll go to the B flat. So I think I'm swapping the order of what is in the description of the video if you're following that closely. So because these are the last pieces and they're fairly short, if you have any lingering questions, definitely throw them in the chat now. I'll check them after I play these 2 little movements. And that will conclude the stream pretty soon. All right. A couple more cracks. I'm just a crackly person. It's not just from playing the cello. All right. So I'm starting with the Ciccona. Both of these are ground bass patterns. So once again, you will recognize repeating bass lines implied in these 2 pieces. And there we have it. Nice to end on a positive, uplifting note. We could all use it. All right, guys. Oh, hey, Jonathan. Thanks for tuning in. So that is my last selection for today, and I'm pretty tired. That was a decent-sized program. I'm happy I was able to play all of that for you guys. So I'll recap a little bit if you tuned in late. So this is my first stream for this occasion, as we're all going through this world crisis together. I'm considering doing these streams every week for however long this lasts, since I'm home extra and I've got the time. So be sure you're subscribed to my channel if you're interested in tuning into another one. I, of course, as a musician, was hit financially by this whole lockdown situation, so any donation that you want to give for the stream is super appreciated. You can do it on the GoFundMe or straight to my Venmo, but absolutely no pressure. As I always say, please enjoy this for free. If you are not able to donate, that is completely fine. So thanks for tuning in. I played on my Baroque cello today. If you want to learn more about that, check out the instructional videos playlist on my channel. There's lots of videos to dive into about Baroque string playing specifically and Baroque music. If you play Baroque or classical music and you want to be featured here on my channel, go to my website, emilyplayscello.com/collaborators, and you can apply there. I love to feature other people doing similar stuff to what I do to help them get exposure and share their music with my audience. So definitely look into that if you are interested, and I do offer some support in helping you get to know how to record yourself, both video and audio. I can help you out with that. I know it's a new thing for a lot of people, so if you've got some repertoire ready, you want to record it, and you have some questions, definitely just fill out the form. We can start talking from there. Again, if you're curious about any of the pieces that I played, the program is all listed in the description of this video. And I guess that's all I got to say for today. So thank you guys for watching. This was really fun. If you really liked the stream, you can share the same link that the stream is happening on will become the link of the archive. So you can share it around to people if you enjoyed the stream and you want somebody else to check it out. So thanks again for all the support, and I will see you guys next time. I'm gonna come up here to turn the stream off. All right, bye guys, thanks for watching.